to talk about things. It is, what is it, Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday, the 9th of July. That's right, it seems about right. 2025. And what is happening in the world of geopolitics regarding the Israel Hamas war and the meeting that President Trump just had yesterday or 2 days ago with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, or Bibi Netanyahu. Um, well, if you have seen any of the video from that meeting that they had, and specifically at the dinner or the lunch, whatever, where they sat around, a big dining table and were talking with the press before they ate or something. Um, some reporter asked President Trump, what does he think of a two-state solution? Does he think it's still realistic? And President Trump deferred the question to Bibi Netanyahu, saying to the reporter, I think you have the greatest person in the world here who can answer the question. I mean, the most qualified person, I guess he meant, who can answer the question, because he's obviously the Prime Minister of Israel, so he obviously has an opinion about it. And then he, handed the question over to Bibi to tell him what you think honestly. And Bibi proceeded to say basically a boilerplate answer, which was that, if the conditions are right, that, obviously we want peace and we want the Palestinians to have, the rights, that they deserve, and that they should have a country or whatever if they can choose to do the right thing and put down their arms essentially and stop fighting against Israel all the time. And I'm paraphrasing for you, yeah. But he basically said, he still believes in the concept, or that it's possible, but at the moment, we first have to win this war, and that it doesn't seem, very probable at the immediate moment, but it doesn't mean that in time it won't. Again, it's a big paraphrase. I'm not, quoting directly in any way, but that's roughly what he said. Now, a lot of people, especially on the right wing in Israel, viewed that answer as a very big mistake. A lot of people in the mainstream were like, yeah, okay, whatever, that's fine, whatever, we're not completely dismissing the idea of a two-state solution. However, they do need to put down their bloodlust dreams. Once they put down their bloodlust dreams of wanting to just constantly destroy Israel and kill all the Jews, then sure, if they accept Israel as a state, if they formally declare that they recognize Israel and, stop trying to destroy us through terrorism and all this kind of nonsense, then sure, why not? That's kind of the normative view in Israel, right? And has been for pretty much since the beginning of this country. We've always said, hey, have your country and live side by side in peace with us, and no problem. And those of you who choose to stay in Israel, you get full equal rights. And well, guess what? There's more than 2 million Arabs who chose to stay, who do live in Israel and who are Israeli Jews, and they're not Palestinian. They are Israeli Arabs. Sorry, and most of them are Muslim, and some of them are Christian. But the ones who didn't are the Arabs who are now, since the 70s, really calling themselves Palestinian. There's this notion that they started calling themselves that in 1964. Technically, the PLO started calling themselves the Palestinians when they were helped by the KGB to do that. Hello, I said hello to you. I see you. But it really wasn't until the 1970s that it became a popular term. After the meeting in Khartoum, it decided that it was a priority that all Palestinians, that all Arabs in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza should start calling themselves Palestinian. And it took some time after that until the term was actually popular, like among the vast majority of Arabs in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, because they had to appropriate a cultural identity that was actually used for mostly Jewish people before 1948. Because pre-1948, it was the Jews who were usually referred to as Palestinians. Even though there were Jews and Arabs and Christians and Druze and everybody else living here in this land. Right? But until 1948, it was mostly Jews who were referring to themselves or being referred to by the British or anybody else Americans and everybody else as Palestinians because there wasn't yet a new state, a newly reestablished state of Israel, right? It was still British mandate for Palestine, so they called themselves Palestinian, or they called themselves just Jews, really, for the most part. But but they were often referred to as Palestinian, and there was like the Palestine Post, which is a newspaper which is now called the Jerusalem Post since Israel became a state, and there was the Palestine Symphony Orchestra, which is the Israel Symphony Orchestra, right? But before 1948, it was the Palestine Symphony Orchestra because, well, that's what again, the land was called that, right? Even though it wasn't the country called that, it was just the region was called that. In any case, so a lot of right wingers viewed this as a big blunder. They viewed this opportunity to answer this question publicly and say to the world, no, we don't accept a two-state solution, and we will never accept a two-state solution. And a lot of, I don't want to say extreme right, but very right-winger or messianic right-wingers or biblical right-wingers or whatever you want to call it, very religious right-wingers, say that, no, we can't accept that because it's promised in the Bible. From my point of view, that's a very impractical way to go about it, because if you start taking your orders from the Bible about what you should do with a modern political state, especially in a country that's a secular country that gives you the right to be as religious as you want or not, then you have a problem, which is, well, you're complaining about them, our enemies, right? The Muslims who want to destroy us still. Not all Muslims want to destroy us, right? But those that do, you're complaining that they're taking the orders from God. So well, then why should you? It's a little bit, it doesn't sit quite well. I mean, I understand the logic behind it, but there are some issues there, right? There's some problems if you start doing that. Anyway, so that's the short recap of like what happened at the dinner meeting, right? Is that Bibi said basically that, yeah, he's still willing to have a two-state solution if the conditions are met, but that currently there are no such conditions. So it's ridiculous to even not ask such a question, but to even think about the possibility of this happening, because we're still fighting a war against people who want to destroy us. And they've said over and over again, they want to do October 7th over and over and over and over again, right? But we need to destroy Hamas. Otherwise, they will do October 7th over and over and over and over again, right? And we need to get the hostages back, because if we don't get them all back, well, then they're just going to see that as a win on the Palestinian, on the Hamas side specifically, and on the terrorist side, they're going to see that, oh, we can go take hostages and not give them back. And Israel will just accept it. We can't accept it. Otherwise, they will just keep doing this. We need to show them that we won. They need to accept that they lost. It's really just that simple. Okay? So anyway, that's the short recap of it. And we'll talk with you guys in a little while. Peace.